Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands, and welcome to SP Tutorials, where today we're going to be checking out how to put samples into your project. Now, if you watched the last episode, we'll switch over to the main screen now. Last episode, we worked with some synth lead stuff, or we worked with the plugins that we had. Now, this was the same color as this last time. I changed the color on it by right-clicking it and going down to track color, custom color. The reason, first of all, that you want to change the track colors is so that you can keep track of how many different instruments you've got. And ideally, you want to have these tracks a similar color if they're a similar type of instrument, just to keep things nicely arranged. But to get back to the main part of the story, samples, which we're working with today, are pre-recorded bits of audio that you can add to music. In order to either create something new with them or to just have them as an individual feature. And a lot of people will sample music that's been previously released to add to their new tunes, or they'll sometimes steal and completely not make any effort to change it, which is a shame. But most of the time people are pretty they're pretty good about taking a bit of a song, i.e. sampling it, placing it into a song they're making and making something different, something transformative. So before we go any further, if you sample a song, you've got to make it transformative, otherwise you could end up in some legal issues. The samples that I'm working with today are ones that I bought legally, I'm paying for. In fact, I think these were actually free ones that I got through Slate Digital. And again, full disclosure, I'm not sponsored by Slate Digital. I simply like their products. What I've got is a whole bunch of sample stuff, as well as some IR stuff, which we'll probably get into when we do some guitar recording. But Slate Digital, you can see SD, they have a whole lot of different sample packs. And the sample packs are basically these packs of these samples. And they usually, if you open one up, you got loops and one-shots. One-shots are like a specific, like a head of a drum or a head of a cymbal or something, and you can add them individually into a beat, so you get really full control over your samples. But loops, I think loops are easier for beginners, because I think they're basically if you go full, and we're gonna find something. You see how it goes: SD seismic 2 loop, full meters 80. That's the name of the sample pack, and then you've got the individual name of the sample, and then you've got 80. Now that 80 needs to match the tempo that your session's at. So you see down here we've got 80. Well, if you don't have that at the same tempo, what will happen is that you will have your drums out of time with your lead sample, which if you remember was that's what we came up with last time. That's what I settled with. Because remembering part 5 is when we were working with those free plugins. And this plugin that I'm using, incidentally, is called Vital. And I just found a preset by clicking on this box, chose one I liked, and then I just made a little thing by clicking in the squares and dragging the notes to the length that I needed them to be. But with samples, you don't need to do that. Literally, you just find a loop that's the same tempo as your song, and if you can't find the one that matches, you're gonna need to probably change the tempo of your session. Just remember that everything else will speed up and slow down as well, okay? But here, we'll drag it to there, and this little box will come up and say adjust media based on this tempo. You don't need to worry about getting rid of the tick. Just keep it the way it is. Keep it the way it is, because there will be times where you might accidentally forget that they aren't at the same tempo, and then you're going to be kicking yourself later on. So we've now added the drum loop to a different track than we had for the synth lead bass thing. I've labeled both of these here so that I know which is which, as well as color coordinating them. I'm going to play them and we're going to see how they sound. That sounds great. Again, part of it is because the samples that I'm using, the loop is high quality, and that's something Slate Digital does. Again, I'm not sponsored by them. I simply like their products. Although Slate Digital, if you want to hook me up, brother. But yeah, so we've got something that works really, really well. Let's add another sample. So we'll go back to sample stuff. Trying to find the 808 set I have. I should have vintage drum machines 808. Cool. So not 808 No, definitely not. I thought I had an actual 808 set. Oh, Slate Digital Bass Hole Sample Pack, 808 loops. So here, we can see there's an additional consideration to make. But what we've got to remember is that we not only need something that is in 110, that is an 80 BPM, but also we need it to match the key signature that we've got with the original synth loop. Now, if we go here, that is C major. So what we need to do is we need to find something that is in C major. I mean, there's like, I'm looking for C, man. It's really hard. I can see loop call. See how it says rate 842? That's because it was initially created to be played at 95, but because we've needed to find something in the key of C major, and there wasn't a lot in the key of C major, you've got to, I've had to choose the one that's at 95, so there's a chance that this 808 sample might sound like kind of garbage. I will tolerate that, but I want to see how it sounds with everything else. So you can kind of hear at this point, and we've got to remember to make it a different color because it's a different type of instrument. Maybe a nice blue. There we go. So cool. That's great. That's okay, I'm actually reasonably happy with that. Now you'll notice that I'm messing with these little faders down here. It's simply because I don't want it to sound like shit. And there are perceived loudnesses of different instruments regardless of how big they look in the stereo field. There is some post-processing I'm going to need to do on these to get them to sit cleanly in the mix, but at the moment I'm very, very happy with how they sound. Now, you might be wondering, what am I doing here? Well, what I'm doing here is I'm switching the output to mono so that I can hear everything together. Because in music, you have what's known as a stereo field, and it's the way that the instruments are placed in your left and right headphones. If you're mixing only in stereo, you hear everything around your headphones, but you can't really get a good grasp of how everything sounds like relative to each other. So that's why you move it to mono, so that everything's in the exact same place, and you can, stage the relative volumes of things like that. Now what I'm looking for now, bearing in mind, I haven't spent a cent at this point. I mean, like, I haven't spent a cent on the plugin. I haven't spent a cent on the software. I haven't spent a cent on the samples. Yeah, I bought hardware, but I'm not using hardware for this. I'm literally just using my computer. This is the power of music technology in this day and age. This sounds great. What I would do personally though is I wouldn't want it to loop like that for a second time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and hold and drag over the first four. I'll just actually show you how I do it. So I drag over all of it, and then I find the end of that section and I just Control V, and you've got another set of it. So what I would recommend is that first of all, you, on the second time, maybe get rid of the first half of this drum beat, just so you have a bit of change, because it comes in quite bluntly, you know? See how that's a lot more interesting than just having the drum loop literally just repeat? And what you can do here is actually in that space that you've created without a drum kit, you can go back here and you can actually find something not bassy and not drummy, but maybe something a little bit softer. C was maybe not the right way to go about this. Oh, there we go. Now, I don't know what this is going to sound like. Melody is a lot more difficult to work with than but 808s and kicks, because melody, they're just way more different, lots more different textures. And I know people are gonna be like, yeah, there's lots of different textures to percussion as well, but usually you have a kick and a snare, right? With melodies and harmonies and stuff like that and those kind of synths, it's all out the window, dude. It just gets wild. So we're gonna listen to it and see how it sounds. I've actually, you won't often be entirely satisfied with the first of these, so what you can do is try another one. I found another one, I think, in C just before, and I've now lost it, which kind of pisses me off a little bit, but it's fine. We will survive this. Pretty sure I saw one there that said 80 in C. Yeah, there we go. Try this one. There we go. Dude, that fucking bops, dude. And you'll find that you occasionally need to make... That first note sounds gross, but if you get rid of it... Dude, I fucking love that. Like, I would actually probably consider releasing that if I wasn't like making it for like a tutorial video. So it starts off like this, and it's great. No complaints about that. I'll just find another sample whilst we're going, you know? What you can do as well is you can use samples of like vocals singing. I'll try this and we'll see how this goes. Okay, I hate it. I mean, like, I think it's maybe try something in A minor, the relative minor? I don't know. Okay. All right. Let's try that. Okay, fuck it. I can vibe with that. Give it a bit of lushness. Give it a bit of lushness, so we can add some like stereo delay or something like that, and add a bit of reverb in there. Okay, we're gonna save it because we're adding a bit of spice to it now. Maybe like a little. I don't know. Like it feels a little bit dry. This is where it gets fun though, because like see how I'm invested in it now. Okay, now we're gonna mix it to make sure we're not getting too ahead of ourselves. Okay, so I think we're having fun now. Because if you can keep that delay at the same, because we haven't gotten to this stuff yet. I've just realized I'm just going ahead and going. This is how addictive music can be, though. It can really hook you, you know, and it can just make you feel like you're doing something really, really good with your time. And I think that's the most important thing for people to understand, is that music is a creative process, and it's something that I think is attainable by a lot of people. Just gonna make sure that's okay. Yeah, it's still low, but the drums can probably go down a little bit. Okay, so I want to talk about, just before we finish up for today, because I don't want to do too much more. I don't want to confuse things too much. You'll notice that la 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 thing has like an A minor, and the reason that's A minor is because C major and A minor are relative scales in music. They contain the same notes. When you create music and use samples and stuff like this, and just to rephrase, there are drum loops you can get bass loops, you can get harmonic, like note-based or chord-based loops, and you can also get vocal chops. You want them all to be in a similar tempo, if not the same. And like, for instance, here, you can see here that I've got nothing more or less than 0.8 on the rates, and that's because it still sounds okay. Before I tried using something that was quite a lot slower than this, or a lot faster, and it just sounded like absolute garbage. Reaper has limits to how well it can modulate the waveform in order for it to fit a track. It's based on what it initially comes with, but as long as you use either the same key signature or the relative major, and we'll get into that theory stuff later on if people are interested, or if you use like that, you'll be fine, okay? But this is basically the first track I think I've made, and remembering that again, all of this is free. You didn't need to pay for a cent of this. Not even this video that I'm watching. Granted, if you went and bought the stuff you needed, like headphones or like speakers and stuff, yeah, you spent money there, but once you get that stuff, that'll benefit you regardless, you know? Having a better computer allows you to do lots of different things. You know, and having decent speakers allows you to really enjoy music and intricacies of it, as well as having decent headphones. Like these here are professional headphones. And if you think about it, outside of music production and audio stuff, I actually get to hear music at its proper best version of itself, because I'm using stuff that accurately represents it. So like, don't feel bad if you have spent money up until this point. This is the free part. You know, getting the plugins that I'm using like these and making them a little more zazzy is not necessarily free. Like those are plugins I get through a Plugin Alliance subscription I have. The Unfiltered Audio Sadman. But then to be fair, I don't use half of those plugins anyways, so you can probably be a little bit more selective than I am. I'm just lazy, right? But at this point in time, if I wanted to, I could like probably sell this as a beat. I'm not even fucking joking. I could probably sell this as a beat. Why not? Make money. Go hustle, man, if you want to do that. Or just enjoy yourself. But that is my... Hang on. But that's the SP tutorials for today, using samples and plugins. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I know that we haven't talked about how like to get the different volumes of different instruments sorted. But yeah, if you basically at this point, if we just quickly go back, these little fader things down here, you can move them up and down to change the volume of the track. And if you change it to mono by clicking that little symbol there, it's gonna be a lot easier to get them to sound like they're at the same loudness. There's also a bunch of other tricks you can do to be able to get that effect. But until then, I will catch you in next SP tutorials. Hopefully you enjoyed the tune I made, and best of luck making your own. Spiderhands Out.